Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm really glad you could join us today. We have a really exciting episode for you. We are joined by Sheba Lasley. Sheba, thank you for joining me today on the show.
Thanks for having me, James. Excited to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And could you provide a background on your experience and what you're up to?
Sure. So I have about 20 years of recruiting experience. I started that experience out in staffing and worked with Manpower, their IT arm, for about 9 years. Then I moved into Matrix Resources here in Atlanta, where it's pretty well known for providing excellent IT or technical talent. Then I ended up going in-house with companies and help them grow their talent, their technical talent, from software engineers to project managers, business analysts, just to really ensure that they have the talent needed to achieve business goals. And most recently, I worked for a SaaS startup. I was the director of people there. I single-handedly helped them within about 1.5 years grow from about 20 individuals to 78, while also overseeing their HR initiatives as well. So I recently went out on my own, started my own business, Total Success, where I provide those services on a consulting basis, both HR and recruiting.
That's great. And it's been great to get to know you over the years. We just, for everybody tuning in, we're able to work together a little bit at everyone's social.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this is, I'm excited for this conversation, and particularly with your experience more recently, everyone's social, going from, a handful of employees to around 80 folks. I
Yeah.
think, culturally, right, a lot evolves, right? When you go from the initial kind of founding team, if you will, or initial kind of smaller group of individuals to
Yeah.
start to build out an organization and preparing for scale, right?
Correct.
So, yeah, kind of curious. I think to start us off, I would love to talk to you about culture and how your kind of mindset kind of evolved from your more recent experiences, and when you're thinking about advising companies that are going through a similar phase of growth as what you recently went through. How do you think about culture, and how do you start to, I suppose, to work on it in the early days and scale with culture?
That's a good question. I think the main thing that companies really need to start off with is what their mission, what their values, and what their visions is, right? What those three key pillars, what that looks like within an organization. And once they have defined those things, then they can really start to build and ensure that they're bringing on people that have those similar ideals, or can really come into the company and excel and show those values, and believe in that mission. That is very key, because I've found that companies will try to grow, but without that, it's kind of hard to ensure that there's this fit. There can be this unspoken fit, but let's get a spoken fit as well, and with that mission, vision, and values.
Sure. And so that's what starts at an early stage. And I suppose when you're starting to scale and hire, like, what are you kind of, where in the interview process are you kind of bringing this up? How are you essentially evaluating if it seems to be the right type of individual that's going to thrive in the environment with the team that you have, and truly be like I suppose a value add, a culture add, if you will, to the organization?
Great. Yeah. So I think it really starts off even before you're talking to the candidate. What type of content is the company getting out there? What, about the mission, or what are the values that the company holds? What organizations, nonprofit organizations, are the company aligned with? Those type of things can kind of get the message out to candidates about a company way before a recruiter or hiring manager is even talking to the candidate. But then from there, once there's this touch point with the candidate, it's really on that first call, asking questions, having that conversation with candidates, having that candidate ask questions about the company. It's a two-way street on that first call. It's not only the company really evaluating the candidate should be using that first call to evaluate the company and make sure that the company is aligned with their own mission, their own values, their own vision, because we all should have that in our life. And and just utilizing those things, such as the prior to employer brand, and then that initial phone call. And it should be something that is evaluated throughout the candidate process. So after it's handed off from the recruiter, okay, the hiring manager then should be on board, or anybody else interviewing that candidate should make sure that there is this mutual fit, and the candidate should also be vetting that process out through their interview cycle as well.
Yeah, I think it's looking for opportunities, right? Like throughout
Yeah.
the entire life cycle, if you will, from top of funnel kind of awareness channels to all the way through the employment process, interviewing process to hire to employee experience, and then even offboarding, if you will, and potentially alumni groups. I mean, we should be thinking about culture and employee experience as an end-to-end motion. And I think actually seeing, in a sense, our candidates and employees as customers.
Yes.
We in business are here to serve two groups of folks: our customers that pay the bills, and then our, essentially our employees, our customers that are helping delivering great experiences to the folks paying the bills, right? So I think it's moving from understanding the correlation there. And you're right, I think it starts with awareness, like marketing, right? I'm a huge believer that there's so many parallels between revenue organizations and people organizations. And I think that, there's, to some extent, talent acquisition, there's a marketing aspect, a sales aspect, a customer success aspect once people are onboarding in the organization. And I think how we communicate, the words we use, how we communicate on careers pages, how we communicate in our outreach templates, our job descriptions, the culture needs to be very clear and at the forefront of everything that an organization does. That's really, it's the mission is incredibly important. I would say demonstrating culture, in my experience, is actually even more impactful. Being able to share, and that's, again, worked with like over 150 companies now over the last 8 years. And I would say that I think culture, if you can demonstrate a people first culture, an inclusive culture, a culture that's like almost like the psychology of we're lifelong learners and we're always looking to get better. One of the things you said in the prep call, which I found really fascinating, is it's not about like finding somebody who kind of like fits an existing mold, but rather trying to see like maybe this person, maybe there's a gap that we're not even aware of. Like maybe there's something else that we're missing here, that somebody can bring something new to the table, which I found was a really interesting insight that you shared with me.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's very key, because I think sometimes companies or departments can get into this groove or mindset of, okay, we need to have someone just like Sam, right? And Sam has been doing a great job. They must be exactly like Sam. Okay, Sam's doing a great job, but where is Sam? Sam is not perfect. Where is Sam lacking? Where can there be a value add to Sam, to the team, to the company? And just being a little bit more broader in our mindset to ensure that we're encompassing that, I think is key. And one of the things I want to go back to is when you mentioned offboarding. I think a company, how many employees right now can say that they loved their company while they were working with them, but the way that they laid them off, the way that they dealt with them after they were let go or left the company, shattered all those, let's say, 8 years of working with such company and the greatness that they had thought. So I think, like, I agree with you on that offboarding piece too, ensuring that that culture is defined even once that person leaves, because they can be that advocate for you. They could be your customer. They could refer other employees to you down the line. Never burn a bridge with an employee that's left your company, because you never know when you'll need them again.
Well, then you're going to like this. So one of I'm going to tell you about Steve Cadigan. He was the first chief HR officer of LinkedIn.
Okay.
I give this guy a name drop so many times. He should be paying me for some kind of sponsorship on this show. But no, he's been a very good advisor, and now he's actually on my company's board of advisors. But one of the things he taught me a few years ago is he always talks about how, there's this old school like Tony Soprano approach to business, where it's like, when you're not working with me, you're dead to me. Right. Like the Tony Soprano school of thought. And it's like, that's just so ridiculous. Like, it's, you're right. There's first off, there's like the whole human element of relationships, which are important, and they directly impact all of the quality of all of our lives. And we should invest in our relationships and treat people right. I mean, that's just basic like things I think like from a moral perspective we should all be able to agree on. However, that's like if you need more, if there's executives out there who are just strictly looking at a P&L, if you need more than that, uh, there's real opportunities. There's real business opportunities to treating people well and helping that offboarding process. And I think to the extent that we can be realistic about our company being a chapter in somebody's career,
Yeah.
and to see chapters as success versus when a chapter ends, it doesn't mean it's failure. I mean, what an awful way to look at life. If you looked at all the different chapters of your life, closing as failure, it just doesn't make any sense, right? So
No.
I think we need to look at it like this way, like, okay, people are going to come here for a period of time. Our ideal customer profile, in this case, employee profile, is, this kind of has this is sort of kind of where they're at. Of course, there's going to be a variety of reasons people come to work for us, but this is generally speaking kind of where they're at in their career. This is possibly the type of environment they're looking for. They're probably going to grow with us for X amount of time. And this is the track progression beyond us. And I think if you look at products out there, there's products that serve enterprise, there's products that serve SMB.
Yes.
And knowing kind of where you fit in that spectrum and delivering quality experiences to a specific group is honestly often a better approach than trying to say, how do we just hold on to this individual for as long as possible? I'm not saying we shouldn't focus on tenure, but I think focusing on experience is most important. That'll increase tenure, but it also increases referrals and all this other stuff when people leave, right? I mean,
100%.
I couldn't agree more with you. I think that there should be a lot more emphasis on outplacement and really maintaining relationships and creating that, again, the business perspective, web of relationships, a bunch of advocates out there for you on the market talking about how great their experience has been with your company.
Exactly. And I wish more companies had a more far-sighted view to that than the short-sighted view that you see that is prevalent in this world, right? Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, it's like, I think too, being in tech,
yeah,
we can lose sight of the long-term game because we all see a lot of stuff in part of it, and we see these companies going from 0 to 300 people, like what it feels to be overnight. Maybe it's basically overnight, 12 to 18 months. Like, what is that? It's nothing, right? It's like no time.
right.
And we start to, I think people can kind of get caught up in that. And the reality is that most businesses, right, you don't actually build something real for at least 7 to 10 years. And it's kind of,
Right.
it's different
so
in tech.
It's very true. It can grow, within a year, 2 years. I've seen it, right? And you've seen it. You actually provide, you help companies grow to that level. So yeah, it's definitely. And then when that grows so fast, then there is the opportunity to lose sight of what that all aspects of the culture and how it touches every aspect, or to even maintain that humanness. And I really respect the companies that are able to still maintain that within the company when a candidate is interviewing, and even post-employment. It's rare, but they are out there, and it's really, really beautiful to see.
It is. And it's we recently had the episode's actually being released tomorrow on June 13th with Daniel Chait, who's the co-founder of Greenhouse applicant tracking system. And we were talking about putting in place structured hiring, which is a big part about creating a good experience. Is not only creates better hiring outcomes for the company, but it creates a much better experience for the candidate who's not being asked the same question 20 different times, or asked like illegal questions, or a whole host of things, right? Having structured hiring is good in so many ways.
Yeah.
One of the things you're talking about is like the bar isn't even that high. Like, you don't have to be perfect. If you just literally try,
yeah,
you're going to be better than a lot of companies.
100%. You will stand out. You will stand out. I agree with you.
I mean, candidates will reward you for caring. You don't have to get it all right. As long as you have a willingness to be better, people appreciate that. They're willing. People will take challenges and problems. They can accept those. And in fact, they can get excited about those if it's a culture where they feel like everyone's working toward a common goal to create the best environment possible for employees and customers.
Yes.
Versus, this kind of pristine facade but there isn't seem to be an emphasis on, their experience, right? Like,
I agree. And that a lot of that comes with communication too, right? Like if even if they didn't get the job or things have been put on hold, or if we're going to take it to the candidate experience, right? If we're going to do that, then just even communicating with them and not leaving them hanging and them wondering where they stand with the company, or when you lay somebody off or let them go, what does that look like communication? Like communication is so pivotal in all our human relationships, that the way, even if it's bad news, let's look at ways of how we can communicate it properly and timely, so that people aren't left hanging and wondering,
I think, yeah, that's why process is so important as well. Like,
yeah,
every process, and having a systematic approach to communication,
right,
feedback, everything. I mean, if it's performance or otherwise, I think it's you have to have a structured approach in place. Otherwise, stuff is going to slip. It's going to create inconsistent experiences. People are going to be frustrated, right? I mean, it's all around. We have to do. I think a lot of companies need to do better there. And I think that there's a lack of understanding of the true ROI
yeah,
that comes from creating a culture that invests like in people. Like, I think too, just like onboarding is a perfect example of that. You see a lot of early stage companies where they're like, we're a young, scrappy organization, and we're gonna help with onboarding, but you really got to figure it out yourself. And um, I get it, but also, like, I've worked for smaller companies, and I know you can still have structured onboarding
yes,
as a smaller organization. Like, it's not an excuse to not, like, what are you going to tell customers that, like, hey, we got this great feature set, but just so you know, onboarding is going to be bad because we're a young
exactly.
company. You would never say that to your customer. I mean, like a death sentence. So, like, why do we think that that's an acceptable thing to say to candidates?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that there's some leaders that like that scrappiness and want to keep it unorganized a little bit, to kind of to keep that mantra of, oh, we're scrappy, we're trying to do things bootstrap and whatnot, but bootstrap, scrappy doesn't mean, as you said, unorganized. It just means lean, maybe, it just means other things, but it doesn't have to mean disorganized within the
Yeah. It doesn't
organization.
mean you need like a huge tech stack and this totally robust onboarding process. It just means that thought should be given to it, right? Like, it
Yeah,
means that before a role is opened, a 30, 60, 90-day plan is put in place. It means that we know how success is going to be measured. We know the 1 to 3 top outcomes that are most important,
yeah,
right? We have a structured interview process in place, so we don't waste people's time or say their name incorrectly 20 times throughout the interview process, or like there's just some little things you can do that are high leverage. And I think that those are what you can look for in a startup. You don't have to solve 100 problems. Just like, what are the top 3 high leverage things you can do? And it makes a big difference.
it does make a big difference, because I've had candidates take a job offer just off of the experience that they had interviewing. They've had 2 offers, multiple offers maybe, and maybe even if the compensation came in a little bit lower, but they saw and felt how they would be treated once they would be working with the organization. And that goes a lot further than maybe compensation. And lo and behold, right, people might not believe that, but it's statistically shown how people are onboarded has a correlation to whether or not they're going to stay with the organization for a long time. And again, that's going to go to the bottom line of that ROI for leaders. So if they look at it in that way, right, not having to spend additional money training, replacing, you have an advocate for you for a number of years more than you would if you didn't do onboarding, right? Look at that, how that's correlating with the ROI and the business objectives for leaders.
Yeah, 100%. It just makes so much
Yeah.
so much sense from every perspective. I think too, it's like, imagine if you could get that right and you could provide competitive comp, like, game over, right? You got
Yeah,
it.
it's a no-brainer,
Yeah.
no-brainer.
Well, that's really cool. And I want to transition. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk
Sure.
about here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit more, diving into this isn't actually directly on, it's correlated to all the topics we outlined, but I would love to dive into a little bit about possibly if you experience like a cultural shift or change as you go from 20 people to 80 people,
Mhm.
how that possibly evolves. Like, where does it, maybe it needs to evolve, maybe to some extent, like the skill set or um, the mindset of,
Yeah.
the individuals that could do 100 different things to being potentially more specialized, or maybe there's just kind of like a kind of a organic cultural shift that occurs as you onboard different people and it kind of naturally gravitates in one direction or the other. But I'd be kind of curious to get your thoughts on if you noticed a cultural shift going from 20 to 80 folks, and what that kind of looked like for everyone social when you were there.
Yeah, it did. So I would say definitely that scrappiness and that I think also you're gonna lose some of that. There's this core of people that maybe started with the company and that grew, or that started before it grew. That sense can be a little bit lost, while on one end it's nice to add more people to the team, but there is that little bit of that shift in mindset of this it's easier to maybe get together, or it's easier to get things done to a certain degree because you can move a little bit quicker when you're smaller. I think the shift definitely comes, as you mentioned, with now instead of someone running the whole marketing team, then now you have it structured into 6 different people. That actually happened. We had one individual who was doing all of marketing for years. And then within that year and a half, the duties were structured out to 6 different individuals. So as you can imagine, there's a little bit of a mind shift there for everybody involved, even on the leadership side. And then you're going to see also too, a little bit more organization is needed. When you're bringing in people, as you're growing, you need people who can help you get to that organization piece where some things need to be documented now, because as you're growing, there needs to be this resource knowledge base for employees to go to and resources. So that needs to start to be really created and honed in on and looked at as very important. So I saw those things were things that I definitely saw growth as growing pains, quote unquote, within the organization, growing from about 20 to 80. Then you're going to look at some of these other logistical things such as compensation, benefits, offerings, perks. All of those things need to be looked at too, and also turnover. What are you doing to employee retention? Those things start to take in place. A little bit more of a structured performance review and certain technologies that need to be put into place within an organization once you start growing as well. Because if you are looking at a long-term growth plan, then you need to start looking at what's in place to scale.
Mm-hmm.
And putting those things into place.
Agreed. And I too, like, I think one of the questions I would like to dive into is, for the companies you advise,
Yeah.
when do you typically see companies start to invest in employer brand, and when do you recommend they start to invest? And of course it's a balancing act, right? Because there's a lot of other things to do. So it's when to start, what are the high leverage things to start with first? And then as the company has it bigger, it can become more sophisticated. How do you see the employer branding motion evolve for organizations?
Yeah, for my clients, I really advocate employer branding from the very beginning. It is a piece of the puzzle to what I bring to them, because as a recruiter, I don't only like to just find the candidates and have a posting. I also want candidates to just come to us as well. I want candidates to be like, I want to work for that company. It makes our jobs easier. So if the more information you can get out there on what the company's doing and what their mission, their values, their vision is, it just will draw company or candidates to you. Getting leadership to post on LinkedIn about what they're doing, employees to really repost, right? Using an employee advocacy tool to help repost and get information out there. So in essence, for anyone who's doing employer branding, I typically like to consult my clients who on the team wouldn't mind doing videos for what is the day in the life of working at company X, and then getting that content out there so that people can really get a feel. Because one statistic shows, and someone who I used to work with gave this great stat, and it will always stay with me. So the importance of what the importance of social media is from an individual contributor as opposed to the company itself. So for instance, Microsoft has maybe 1 million followers. Let's just say, I'm throwing a number out there, but Bill Gates would have 25 million in essence, right? So you see the reach of an individual's brand compared to a company brand. So if we as a company could use the employees to then get out what it's like working with the company, it's going to go further than the company only putting out information about what it's like working at the company. So I really partner with my clients to get employer branding out quickly, because it just makes my job easier, but it also brings more awareness to the company, and also can bring in more clients to them as well, customers.
Sure. I think there's a huge opportunity on LinkedIn for leaders to develop thought leadership, to do podcasts like we're doing today, to write content on LinkedIn. I mean, it's been a huge help for me. I mean, we were hiring, we're not hiring quite as much right now because the market's a lot slower. But we were hiring a ton over the past couple of years. We would get people in funnel from people that would engage in my LinkedIn posts, and then I would kind of scroll through and see, okay, are there any relevant skill sets here? Okay, I found a couple. Let me reach out and see if they're open to interviewing with us. And I would get 100% response rate essentially. I mean, even if they, ultimately they weren't looking or whatever,
right?
It was just such a warm opening. Nobody felt like they were being sold. It was just like, there was familiarity and trust already built in through just building that awareness. And I think it's so incredibly valuable, when you're working with people, to focus on relationships. And you can get the whole team involved. You can set goals, little rewards around posting. There's different ways to get folks involved. I mean, I think it's depending on their department. Not everybody feels comfortable with it, and that's okay. It's not like it's mandatory necessarily, but I think you can do things to incentivize it. And hopefully it's a part of the culture you want to build, is that openness and willingness to get the company brand out there and experiences out there, right?
100% agree. Yeah, I think just for you, for example, I think having leadership put out that thought leadership, as you meant, that content that shows what they're thinking about. And for me, I resonated with you. I enjoy reading what you put out, because I'm like, wait, I agree with James. I mean, that we're similar in how we think. And so in essence, I would want to work with you, right? I would want to partner with you. I would want to, you get to know somebody without getting to know them, so to speak, and having a conversation with them when they see your content out there. And, don't be afraid. Sometimes it can be daunting, but don't be afraid to get that out there and let people get to know who you are. And you never know what that return would be in the future.
It's so incredibly valuable, and you just have to be willing to make the investment consistently. I think some people, they might think that the bar is really high when it comes to posting and producing content. But the reality is all of us have something to share from our point of impact, and there's people that can learn from it who have had different experiences, and they have gaps, and you can fill those in and add value. Or sometimes people will just agree with you and they resonate with that. They're like, somebody else gets it, right?
Yeah.
And even like the lower engagement posts where it's like, this is what we're doing, where maybe it doesn't get a lot of likes. The way that I see it is like, well, look, even if you have a post that gets 5 likes, you're getting in front of like 500 people.
Yeah.
If you could get on a stage and say, something important to 500 relevant folks in your network, you do it. I mean, you don't need to have reach to 50, 60,000 people, hundreds of likes to make a difference. I mean, just be active and be okay if it's low engaging. Like, it's still better than nothing.
I 100% agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think getting into this, like for executives tuning in,
Yeah.
when it comes to culture, employer branding, what are some of the top recommendations you'd have for like a CPO, CEO in terms of getting started? So like they leave this call,
Mhm.
we want this to impact their talent strategy. Like what are some of the high level things that you would say, hey, here's what you want to evaluate, what you're doing, or if you're doing, you could be doing this wrong, or you need to double down on this, or like
Yeah.
what are some of the key takeaways that you have for us?
I would say defining what those mission, vision, and values are within an organization, right? So ensuring that everybody. So as a people team or operative and within an organization, that is part of our role anyway, is to help the leadership team to kind of define what that is, if it's not already defined, and if it is, making sure that that's kind of brought throughout the whole organization. So I think having that defined, but then taking that, what is defined as the culture, and ensuring that it is represented through a candidate experience from beginning to end. And ensuring that I'm very big and passionate about candidate experience and putting that humanist touch within that space. We've all looked for a job, and I would say the majority of us may have not had a call returned from a recruiter, and it's already a stressful time in our life. I don't think we need to add to people's angst by not treating them well. Even if they're not a candidate that we are going to be moving forward with, I'm an advocate on ensuring that process is they're treated with dignity. So I would say always put that, taking your culture, putting that in a candidate experience, and treating everybody with dignity from beginning to end, but even if you're not going to move forward with them. And then taking that culture too and representing it in then employer branding. Don't neglect employer branding. It's not something, as you said, needs to be huge and robust. It can even just start with the people team. Once you have jobs open or positions open, you can get your hiring manager to help you with posting. Hey, it's as simple as saying, hey, hiring manager, we have this role for you. Just please post it on your LinkedIn. Even as simple as that, that's employer branding, just to show that there is some activity or what it's like to work within the organization. But having some structure throughout those three things, the culture, the candidate experience, and employer branding, ensuring those three things are defined and then tied into each other, I think is really something that's going to help a CPO or a people team really lay that foundation.
And some easy wins that I would recommend too is video content on the careers page was very helpful for us. We looked at like what are the top 15 to 30 frequently asked questions
Yeah.
that candidates having screening calls. Let's record 30-second to 1-minute answers from different employees and post them up there. Not from me as founder CEO, but let's
Right.
get folks peers. I mean, of course, I'm biased, right?
Yeah.
So hear from employees, I think is really important. And that makes a big difference. You don't have to have anything fancy, but
Right.
just being able to answer questions. And I think too, it's looking at the careers pages, you can't just put it there and expect to drive traffic to it. It's using it as an asset, like on the job description. I think even having, when you job postings, having it there so people can click through to it. I think in outbound sourcing, people should be adding the careers page as a link. Hey, check us out. We have to look at the careers page as a proposal in a sense. It gives answers, and we're sharing it, we're pushing it out into the world
Yes.
versus just kind of having it there. It shouldn't just be a kind of an API to your ATS. Like it should have assets, and one place to start is like, well, what marketing and sales assets do you have for customers? Can you
Yeah.
take that framework and bring some of that over to what you're doing for an employee too, or candidates, excuse me.
Yeah. Recruiting is sales, recruiting is marketing. And so look at it in that way, I think is huge. I agree with you.
Yes. Well, Sheba, this has been a blast. We covered a lot of ground, and I really appreciate that you took the time to join us today. If folks want to engage with you and your advisory services, can you let us know where we can reach out to you?
Sure, you can reach me on LinkedIn. Definitely please connect with me, but also on our website at totalsuccess.io, or you can reach out to me directly at sheba@totalsuccess.io. And that's SHEB as in boy A.
That's great. Totalsuccess.io. That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a good
it
URL.
is.
You must have been excited when that was available.
I was, yeah, there was a few domains that I played with, but yeah, I was happy that I ended up with that one. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, for everybody else tuning in, thank you for joining us on this episode, and we'll talk to you real soon. Take care.
Thank you.